So I wanted to make video about TYT and how they always try to search out racism where there basically isn't any. So let's listen to this.
Gap is apologizing for a new ad that they put out, which features children in various poses. So the problem was that there's a white kid using a black kid as an armrest. Now, of course, it got a lot of criticism on Twitter, and as a result, Gap has apologized. Now, let me give you some more context into this story because it definitely matters. 2 years prior to this ad coming out, Gap featured a similar ad. Okay, let's take a look at that, and it features a black kid putting, their hand on or arm on a white kid, right? I'm just so tired of these stories. I don't know what to say.
Yeah, well,
The reason you're tired is because you actively go out of your way to search on this stuff. And why are you even doing this on your show? If this is such a non-story, why are you talking about it? Why? Because you want to talk about racism at every opportunity you can, TYT.
I'm
okay.
exhausted.
Well, I have clear thoughts on this. Not guilty. Not guilty. That's not racist. So the reason that drives me crazy is because every day almost every day on this show, we find a story. 'Cause it's not hard to find of horrible racism in the country.
Yeah, it's not hard to find because you selectively search racism against mostly black people, but you don't report on when Black Lives Matter co-founders and even founders talk about killing white people and hating white people. That's not racist at all, because that doesn't suit what you want to report on. And this is the stuff you report on instead. You want to uh, report on something that's a non-issue, that where a white kid is leaning on a black kid, and it appears they are sisters, I believe. And instead of reporting on the Black Lives Matter thing, you're just gonna ignore it and report on this instead. That's what TYT does.
Where in Mississippi they find an interracial couple and they kick him out of an RV park and they say, "Well, our church and our community don't like the interracials," right? Like,
Search up on YouTube on other races, and you can see when black people, some black people don't like if they marry or get together with a white man or white woman, or other, because that never happens. But because it's white people, that's why you report on this. That's why. Because it's not that easy to it's not that hard to find racism from any race, but you just focus on one race. That's the difference between TYT and probably most of YouTube, because it's just such a hypocritical stance and a double standard that these guys have.
you've got such enormous racism, let alone all the unarmed black kids being shot in the country, right? So don't call.
And those unarmed kids are mostly white, just to give you something to think about. But every time someone with a minority background gets shot, that gets to the news. And when someone who's, I don't know, Asian or white gets shot, that doesn't make the news because it's not interesting.
All this racism because you're going to get people to go no and they think everything is racism. It's all BS. So
Because it is.
I even read that the two kids might be sisters.
Yeah, they are sisters. Yeah,
Right.
they are sisters. So
Like the white kid and the black kid are sisters, right? So you don't know the story. So look, there's a lot of people, apparently, some people that protested. One of them in this particular article that they referred to in Fortune is Fatima Lajuan Muse, and she at the end she's like hashtag epic fail.
Yeah. Girls can do anything unless she's black. Then all she can do is bear the weight of white girls. That was what the tweet said.
If it's a fail, it certainly isn't an epic one. Okay,
Yeah.
it's a minor fail if it is one. Now, when I first saw the picture, I was like, given the racial dynamics in the country, maybe I would have done a different pose, because I get it, like, it made me...
Oh dear God, now they're gonna defend it. So it's completely okay when the roles are reversed. Again, this is TYT. When the roles are reversed, completely fine. But when a white kid, which is her sister, her freaking sister, means on someone who appears to have darker skin, that's racism. Jesus Christ.
Slightly uncomfortable, but not enough to declare that they're racist.
Yeah.
Do you see what I'm
yes,
saying?
I do. I think what kind of rubbed me the wrong way about this entire story is, first of all, the knee-jerk reaction and the inability to try to explore what the intentions were before you decide what the intentions were for the company, right? So when you decide already that they did it because they think less of black kids or black people in general, I think that's unfair. Like, hear them out and try to figure out what happened there, right? So, and then upon further investigation, once you find out that there was a previous ad that featured a black girl using a white girl as an armrest, well then, wouldn't you just say, all right, well, they've used similar imagery with the races reversed? Like, I don't know, maybe I'm being unfair, maybe I'm not seeing something here, but I just worry because when stories like this come out, they get a lot of attention. This story went viral, and you're right, Cenk, then it makes it even more difficult to point a finger to real, clear instances of racism.
Because you're perpetuating this idea that people are racist all the time, 24/7, and this is what you get when you just continue to do this sort of reporting. So let's go to this one instead, where Matt Damon debates a black producer about diversity, and TYT is reporting on this.
One of his episodes of Project Greenlight, which is a docu-series on HBO. Now, the whole point of this show is to do a competition and basically get new filmmakers, talented filmmakers who win the competition to create a feature film. And as a result, the people who were chosen for it decided to create a film that involves a white pimp slapping a black prostitute. Now, keep in mind that the people who won this competition are mostly white, with the exception of one producer by the name of Effie Brown, who's a black woman. And she's the one who got into a debate with Matt Damon about the way this black prostitute is being portrayed in the feature film. Now,
So let me guess, it's racist.
Project Greenlight is an HBO docuseries that chronicles the behind-the-scenes process of making a movie. Season 4 of the show, produced by Damon and Ben Affleck, premiered on Sunday night after a 10-year hiatus. All right, so I'm going to show you the debate that took place, and then we'll discuss what happened afterwards. Take a look.
I just would want to urge people to think about whoever this director is, the way that they're going to treat the character of Harmony. Her being a prostitute, the only black person being a hooker who gets hit by her white pimp.
We brought up to each other. So
Not necessarily
I think
true.
on the surface, they look like one thing, but they might end up giving us
True that,
something that we don't want. And when we're talking about diversity, you do it in the casting of the film, not in the casting of the show.
Whew. Wow, okay.
So to give you some perspective, what he's saying is everything behind the camera, you put merit behind it. You put the best people behind the camera. Doesn't really care. You shouldn't have any diversity quota behind the camera whatsoever. You should have the best people behind the camera, producing, editing, whatever. And when it comes to on-screen, you can't have a movie set in South Africa or something just with white people. You could, but that would be stupid. You could, or having a movie with just black people in China. that doesn't make any sense either. All white people. So having diversity should make sense in the sense of depending where you film it and what kind of character you're supposed to have. If you're filming in a ghetto in the U.S., you should probably have some people of minority backgrounds. That just makes sense, and that's diversity. It's that simple. And this producer, of course, had some issues with this.
So that last part is what upset a lot of people, because when he said you do it
Yeah, because people don't freaking get this.
in the casting of the film, not the casting of the show, he's talking about the cast of people who are putting this film together, right?
Yeah. So he's saying if you're going to pick actors, you should do diversity on the actors, right?
Yeah.
But behind the scenes, the people making the decisions, you shouldn't necessarily do diversity on. And I think a lot of people justifiably were like, whoa, no, you
Justifiably. So again, diversity and inclusivity over merit.
should do even more diversity on the decision makers, not just the actors playing the roles. The decision makers are much more important.
Right, because the decision makers shape the storyline, they shape every single part of the final product. So it's important to have diversity, especially when you're talking about, race in a situation involving a prostitute and a pimp, right? Those are the types of matters that diversity would really, really help with behind the scenes. Because
No, not necessarily. Wouldn't it if you interview or have someone who's been in the community and happens to be white and has experienced this, does that mean and you base it off of their story? You somehow write and base the character in your movie off of this, but because she's white, you're that's not good enough because it's not diverse. It's a bullshit argument.
you want to make sure that you're sensitive to different points of views, different perspectives. And his reaction to that was actually pretty surprising to me.
So, look, I'm enormously biased in favor of Matt Damon. He appears to be a solid progressive. I don't know from Adam, right? But based on his public comments, and he's done some great, digs of Sarah Palin that I've enjoyed in the past, and Bush and all that stuff. So I want to like him, and I want to be on his side. And ultimately, at the end of the story, that I was, right? But I think that in the beginning, when you look at that, you see, even if you're a liberal, you're a progressive, you might have some assumptions that ought to be questioned, right? If you assume that there shouldn't necessarily be diversity behind the scenes, well, somebody should question that assumption, right? And I think she did a great job of bringing that to light. Now, luckily, at the end, I think Matt Damon agreed with that. And
he did. So let me clarify one other thing. So this show is based on a competition, and the most talented filmmakers get chosen to put this feature-long film together. And, just to play devil's advocate, one might look at Damon's argument and say, okay, well, that's not what he really meant. What he really meant is we don't want to just focus on race when it comes to choosing these filmmakers for the show. We want to focus more on merit because that's more important.
Exactly. But again, this point escapes TYT.
When you start focusing on race and only race, then all of a sudden you're doing something that could be determined as, discriminatory, I guess?
yeah, so now look, that's why it's a super interesting conversation, because there's not an easy answer. It is nuanced, right? So
No, it's actually that simple. You should have the best person for the job. If it happens to be an Asian guy, it happens to be a Native American guy, if it happens to be someone Arab, African, European, what the hell ever. It should only matter because of your what you've done in the past, and you're good enough for the job.
if you say, okay, we're going to do a quota, now we're going to do 4
Yeah.
seasons of Project Greenlight. So one of the seasons has to be a black director, the other season has to be a Latino director, 2 of them have to be women. Then okay, but nobody actually says that, right? That's usually
Yeah, that's what you're saying. You said earlier that you should have diversity behind the decisions. Forced diversity. That's what you said.
Framing that the right wing uses to make fun of looking at diversity, right? Do we think that we should pick based on merit? Of course we do, right? So, for example, we've got an enormously diverse cast here, on air, off air, etc. And it came together 100% organically because we didn't discriminate. We just picked whoever's the best, and it turned out
Yeah, exactly. And that's what Damon is saying. Jesus Christ.
to be incredibly racially diverse, right? Now, sometimes it doesn't happen organically, and I think it's fair to say, hey, let's look a little deeper, right? So, for example, the NFL has a rule that if you're interviewing head coaches, since African Americans were historically discriminated against in that particular position, you have to at least interview one African American. You don't have to hire anybody, but just give them a fair shot because they have been denied a fair shot historically. So it's an interesting topic.
I would like a citation on that, please. You should only be interviewed if you're good enough. That's again, that's racist. Even to say that. That's affirmative action, saying, "Oh, you're so bad at this. You should your race deserves an interview, no matter how bad you are." Even though TYT doesn't think it's racist because they're so bad because they should get some things easier handed to them over the others. Doesn't make any sense.
Topic to bring up. I wish he wasn't as defensive about it in the beginning. In the end, we're probably not going to disagree. I mean, you want to pick the best director, of course. That's the whole point of the show, is to pick the best director, right? Yeah. As long as you give everybody opportunity. And my guess is, if you had the full conversation with him, he would agree.
Okay, let me put it like this: is there anything stopping people who are minorities in the West to get an education? Because in Europe, at least in most countries, there are at least 10 years of school that's mandatory. You have 3 more years afterwards, depending on the country. But then you also have university, which also is free in most of Europe, and you pay pretty much a lot in the US, but it's the same field for everyone. So everyone pays to go to college. Again, everyone has the same opportunity. If they do good in school, you can get a scholarship to go into college. And so afterwards, you have your education. You can start making, in this case, movies, and try to get somewhere. There's nothing stopping minorities to make movies. We have had some good minority directors with, like, the director of the Revenant. He's Mexican. We have Ryan Coogler who did Creed, who's black. I mean, just saying that it's stupid.
Agree. Maybe I'm being biased in his behalf, but that's my sense of him, especially based on his last comment.
So he did talk to Entertainment Weekly about this whole debacle, and here's what he had to say. I believe deeply that there need to be more diverse filmmakers making movies. I love making movies. It's what I have chosen to do with my life, and I want every young person watching Project Greenlight to believe that filmmaking is a viable form of creative expression for them too. My comments were part of a much broader conversation about diversity in Hollywood and the fundamental nature of Project Greenlight, which did not make the show. I'm sorry that they offended some people, but at the very least, I'm happy that they started a conversation about diversity in Hollywood. That is an ongoing conversation that we all should be having.
Okay, so we now go to our African-American correspondent, who we picked because of diversity considerations. He was the only person diverse enough to show up in my living room when we started the show 13 years ago. Now, that's actually Jesus. JR showed up a little bit after the living room when we'd moved into a 2x2 radio office. Okay, JR, what's up?
So, what were we talking about? It was Matt Damon. Yeah, totally
Yeah.
racist. Totally racist, by the way. Okay. So no, it's just I think the problem is, people can be liberal, they can be progressive, they can be accepting of everyone who they are, and not have any kinds of potentially racist overtones to them. But it's just there's a difference. There's a matter of ignorance. There's a matter of just cluelessness and missing the point. So whenever people say you need diversity for the sake of diversity, that's why a lot of people who are in these positions of power and privilege get upset because they're like, what the hell?
Privilege? Okay. Okay, so you know where this guy is coming from. You mean rich people? There are people with minority background who are rich, by the way.
Who cares? I don't want to just hire anyone, which everyone can agree to. But the point of doing it when you're doing something especially creative and you're showing it to the world is the reason for diversity is so you can have other voices that have experiences that you don't have and see something you don't see. Remember the Jon Stewart thing and the Wyatt Cenac thing? And the whole blow up happened because Cenac was like, well, this could look like that, just so you know. And because someone's so used to being Mr. Liberal, they're going to get upset about it. Calm down. Going, oh, I didn't see it that way, doesn't mean you have to slit your throat and jump out the window. Just relax. No one's calling you any names if you just listen. We have such a problem.
This doesn't have anything to do with making movies, by the way. This is just political bullshit that has nothing to do with the argument Damon is making.
Listening to anyone else, that when she's making her point, all you have to do is go, oh, I didn't see it that way. There's things that I don't see a certain way, but it doesn't mean that I'm a bad person. Just relax. Like there's so many, we assume so many things just because you may be wrong about something. You can be wrong, you can move on, you can change it. So the point of having someone else in that room is to make sure that something doesn't come out the way you don't want it to, and later you're apologizing going, oh man.
Again, offense is taken, not given. If you're so offended by something that's in a movie, you can just ignore it and move on. Jesus Christ.
I didn't know I was doing that. Someone can see it before you do.
Well, I think we're all guilty of it. Like, I'm guilty of it. Like, you get defensive when someone calls you out on something that you're wrong about, right? Like, your human nature is to immediately deny that you're doing something wrong and defend yourself. But if you just...
That's kind of the pot calling the kettle. I mean... That's kind of projecting hard at Matt Damon when you're the type of people doing this shit.
Take a step back and understand their point of view, you might actually learn something about yourself that you can improve.
Yeah, to maybe look at it from Damon's perspective for once.
So, but like we all get it too. Again, I'm gonna go back to be Matt Damon-like here. I don't know why it was such a, as they say, full-throated defense. I hate that term. That's not the worst term ever. Okay. But you could also see in that moment that it's, especially with the cameras rolling, it's hard not to get defensive. Like, wait, no, I didn't, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Right? So, but that's why, again, at the end, he says, I'm glad I brought that issue up when he had a moment to reflect on it and think about it. And so he winds up being on the right side of the issue. So just calm down, JR.
That's not what he said. He said having this discussion, which he had on camera, is brought up in conversations. So, again, you're kind of missing the point here, TYT. Anyways, I'm gonna put both of the videos in the description below if you wanna look at them yourself and make up your own mind about this. Anyways, thank you guys for watching and see you guys next time. Bye.